two of my favorite people on the stage. So we're going to draw and go in that order. So Rob drew number 2, so Darrell will speak first. We're going to use the podium for their 7-minute speeches, and then we're going to pull this back and just sit and have a chat. Come on up.
Aloha! Good evening. Welcome to the 3rd annual Cowtown Showdown. We are so glad that you are here. And just my one moment of being the president of Calgary Lougheed, I just want to thank the incredible team who did this entire thing without phoning me once. It's fantastic. To our technical crew, you have to realize that we like to push the envelope just a little bit every time. And we were doing things today that were technically impossible, yet we have 2 of the finest technical engineers up in that booth right now, solving problems on the go. I certainly would like your vote as president of the provincial UCP board. There is no doubt. I am unabashed, conservative. More importantly, I have 4 priorities. My first priority is Alberta first. My second priority is member-centric. My third priority is unity of our party. And the fourth priority is being election ready. Now let me talk about each one of those, because I think what's important is that you understand where I come from. I am not a wallflower. And as Rob told me tonight, this might be the most conservative shirt he's ever seen me wear. It is actually true. It is the most conservative shirt that I own. But I need you to know that when I say unity, I feel that I'm on a bit of a rescue mission for the Premier and the leadership of the party. I feel that there's a large group of grassroots Albertans, conservatives, who feel unheard. And I saw it last year at the AGM. While there was a tremendous effort and an amazing effort to talk about the Alberta Bill of Rights, I thought that that message did not make its way to government. So my theme, of course, is to be your voice to government. That's essential. What does it mean to be Alberta first? Well, when I was talking today on a podcast with Jason Levine, he says to me, well, Darrell, you mean separatist. I says, no, I don't mean separatist. I mean Alberta first. Calgary Lougheed was the only CA in all of Alberta that wanted to create a framework for a sovereign Alberta within United Canada. In doing so, we asked a cross-section of people to come up and present their views. And one of them's here tonight, Ben Trudeau. He wrote Canada First, which was an amazing framework for the 28 areas that Alberta needs to do in order to be sovereign within United Canada. And then we had the great work, I see Jeff Rath over there, and the team from the Alberta Prosperity Project who wrote The Value of Freedom. And when you go to our website at couragetolisten.ca, we created an 81-page book, which was a framework for a sovereign Alberta with or without Canada, because we think Albertans need to understand the information. So when you ask me, am I on side one way or the other? Certainly I have my own personal opinion, and I feel that $70 billion is a lot of money to spend for the services that we get from the federal government. I think it's clear we can do better. And there was only one reason, I'll tell you tonight, that I'm running, because I understood that there was going to be a discussion on sovereignty at the AGM, and that didn't happen. It fell off the agenda. So I had a long chat with Rob. I said, Rob, you know I'm going to run. He says, yeah, Darrell, I know you're going to run. And it's not like Rob and I are blue, okay? But you have to realize that if I were a dog, and I love my dog, Susie, if I were a dog, I would be a German Shepherd. A little bit of bite, a little bit testy, fiercely conservative, and certainly I feel that I represent the ability, because we walk the talk, my wife and I, we run a small business. We have enough immigrants there to represent 26 countries from around the world. So we see immigration, the good side of it, and we see the bad side of it every day. And we understand produce. We understand the cost of food. So when you see media people tell you that food price inflation has gone up 7%, that is a lie. It's 13 to 25%. And why do I know? Because I know the wholesale cost of food. And I'm not pretending we're importing stuff from all over the world. I'm talking about creating a sustainable Alberta economy using Alberta products, and that's essential. And that makes me Alberta first. And I believe in everything that is true and great and blue about our country and about Alberta in 1982. Because that's the last time we really had common sense. And it's painful. You know, we even have immigrants who come to us and say, you know, I heard Irma make a comment. It's not the same country that it was. And it's going to get worse. Okay, and I hate to say that. I mean, we're talking about politics. Someone's going to amplify my message. They're going to say the wrong thing. The Supreme Court votes 5-4 to not have minimum sentences on people who possess child pornography. Does that sound like something that in Alberta we should control? You know, I watch the ostriches get slaughtered. Is that the kind of Alberta that we want? So being Alberta first means that we bring back common sense. We realize that in Alberta, we are conservative. We have a common belief, faith, family, freedoms, free enterprise, fiscal accountability. And of course, because of the wealth that we create and the ability that we have to have singular thought, multiple thoughts, we don't have to say the same thing. We don't have to be all on the same song page. We have amazing resources, and we believe in charity and helping those in need. Those are 6 amazing Alberta values, and I think those are the values that most conservatives have across Alberta. So we all have something in common, and I hear about the rural-urban divide. I mean, I deal with 275 local producers, and I sell products to people in the city. Is there a rural-urban divide? No. There is a lack of unity. And I believe that unity means that the party needs to speak, and that those MLAs whom we help get elected should be listening. And of course, the idea of election readiness in Calgary-Lougheed, we have a strategic plan. That plan says we will knock on doors every second weekend. We will identify 10,000 voters. We will be ready. We will know who will vote for Eric Bouchard in Calgary-Lougheed before the election, and that's how you win. You outwork the opposition. And for all these great things that is our United Conservative Party, I ask you to vote for me as your next president for the provincial board.
He's always such a tough act to follow. Of course, Calgary-Lougheed people know Calgary-Lougheed has a real soft spot in my heart. I have a soft spot in my heart for Calgary-Lougheed. To Trenna, to Roy, to all the volunteers from Calgary-Lougheed for making this event happen. To Darrell as kind of the founder of the feast, who makes all of these, whether it's a little bit of an injection of truth or whether it's the courage to listen. We appreciate the degree to which Calgary-Lougheed and Darrell and his crew lead the conservative movement in the province. So I want to ask for a round of applause for all of that. Good evening, friends. Alberta's strength has always come from its people, families, farmers, small business owners, and workers who believe in freedom, hard work, and opportunity. That independent spirit is what keeps this province strong. We don't wait for someone else to solve our problems. We roll up our sleeves, we build, we grow, and we protect what we've earned. 2 years ago, when you elected me as UCP president, I made one promise, that this party would always belong to its members, not to insiders or factions. And regardless of what you've read on Substack or wherever, I have maintained 100% commitment to that, and I always will. Together, we've opened the doors of our party, brought greater accountability, and made sure every member's voice is heard. Because this party belongs to the people who build it. People like all of you. People like the folks up here. Now, as we look toward 2027, our job couldn't be clearer. The NDP wants to take Alberta backward with higher taxes, more government control, and less freedom for families and businesses. And we can't let that happen. We believe in Alberta's spirit of independence, in our right to make our own decisions, build our own province, and decide our future without asking for permission from Ottawa. The time for Alberta sovereignty is now. And we have a premier who is absolutely fighting for Alberta sovereignty, and a party that you make up the voices of that is 100% committed to Alberta sovereignty. And thank you so much for your commitment to that. This next election isn't about politics, it's about defending Alberta's future. Prophetic comment, maybe the funeral of the nation, definitely not Alberta's funeral. Our freedom to decide our own path, our right to grow our economy our way, and our responsibility to protect what makes this province strong. We can only do that if we stay united. When Conservatives stand together, and Irma said it really well, we've heard it from a lot of people, when we listen to one another and when we focus on what we share instead of what divides us, we win every time. I'm running for re-election as your UCP president because I believe in this movement and in what we've built together. But most of all, I believe in you. I believe in all of you, the members who make this party and the province what it is. Together, we'll stand with Premier Danielle Smith, we'll defeat the NDP, and we'll keep Alberta's future where it belongs, in Alberta's hands. Thank you for your trust, your support, and everything you do to keep Alberta moving forward. Now, we talk a lot about the elephant in the room. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. If you've heard I'm weak, if you've heard I'm a shill, if you've heard that I don't stand up for the members of this party, I want to suggest to you, I stood on the steps of the ledge alongside my friends Samantha and Jack Redekop, who's on our provincial board and is here now, and Patrick Malkin and Vicky Kosmak-Lafrenz, and we said, party board, you got to quit, and premier, you got to quit. And a year ago, when a group of grassroots Conservatives said, this is what our Bill of Rights should be, and we heard from our premier that there was going to be a Bill of Rights, I took that Bill of Rights to our provincial board, we endorsed it, and we fought for it. And I think that, thank you. And I think that MLA Bouchard would say that I have stood in front of the caucus and not necessarily been the most popular person in the room. And I think I stood my ground. I actually had Sonia Egi-Samu and Ranjit Bath come and stand beside me, and I was so focused on what was going on that I didn't even realize they were there. They said, we thought you needed a little support. I am not afraid to stand up for what our members believe, and every vote I have ever made, everything our board has ever done has been 100% about the best interests of this movement, of keeping us united and ensuring that we're going to win in 2027. Now, I have a little piece of paper that I'd like you all to grab. It's out there in the hallway. It focuses on liberty, unity, victory. And part of that unity is we've had a lot of talk tonight about unity, but we have to recognize that there are things that bring us together and there are things that bring us apart. And there are some things that I am really comfortable supporting the members of the provincial board who have said, we can't actually have a position on this as a party because it will split us as a party until Albertans have told us what our position should be. And that's why the Alberta Prosperity Project, their job was to get people to support the Alberta pension plan, and they did it. When people said it couldn't happen, APP proved them wrong, and they made it happen. If our Alberta is actually going to have a referendum on independence that's going to lead to a positive decision on what would be the Mitch Sylvester question, as opposed to the other non-constitutional question, it's going to have to come from APP. And if our party takes a position on that, we stand to risk that decision not going the way that our party members want it to. Because there are people who will oppose the United Conservative Party just because we're the United Conservative Party. But if they listen to Mitch and they listen to the APP people, they might be convinced. Because he did it on APP, he can do it on independence. Together, we'll stand with Premier Danielle Smith, protecting our freedoms and keep Alberta's future where it belongs, in Alberta's hands. Our job is to stay united, focused, and ready to win in 2027. My name is Rob Smith. I'm running for re-election to keep this movement strong, united, and winning in Edmonton, in Calgary, and the rest of the province in October 2027. Please continue to support me for consistency, unity, and strong, effective leadership. You know, a couple of years ago, sitting on this stage with Darrell moderating us, I was running against my friend Jack Redicop. And Jack and I never said a foul word against one another. I will never. I think we were great friends before that. I think we're perhaps even better friends now. I would say that in terms of an outcome for Darrell and I, the only thing that comes out of this is we end up probably respecting each other and being better friends even going forward. And I consider him a pretty great friend right now. So just say.
It's funny. I mean, Rob and I are shades of blue. I mean, we're conservative blue. We're slightly different shades of blue. I tend to be a little more assertive, and I'm a little more immediate. And I think, you know, when Rob and I engage on some complicated things like injection of truth, it's true. We had a vision as Calgary Lougheed to really go out there and explain this whole idea of COVID and vaccines. And I mean, Dr. Biram Bridle, who was working on the fight right now for the ostriches, it's sad. But we have some of the best talent in all of the world in Canada and even in Alberta. So when we put the idea forward that we were going to do this injection of truth, I mean, lots of people ran the other way. I mean, lots. But the board said, you know, we based it on party policy. And the board said, we endorse what you're going to do. So that whole idea of being able to have a conversation, and I think that's for me essential, is that we need to be able to engage in difficult conversations, whether about social media, whether about children, whether about teaching, whether it's about vaccines, whether it's about independence. And without having those conversations, we get this sort of elephant in the room all the time. It just kind of builds and builds and builds, and then it blows up. And I think that might be what's different about the party. The party is willing to have the dialogue. I watch it build up in the government. And for me, that's the part I have the most frustration with, is that what I think, maybe Rob, you can speak to this, is there is a very difference between the party and the government. And the values of our members that are here tonight, you know, they're strong. I mean, I watch the policies coming forward. They're well written, they're well thought out, they're provocative, they show leadership, they show defense. But what I don't see sometimes, and you know, we differ on our approach on this, is how to engage the caucus to be more like the party, because they are the UCP caucus. And I'm confused, and no one can really answer this question for me. Why is it that our caucus members tend to think conservative at election, and then they allow this creep of socialist and liberal ideas into governance? Rob, what do you think of that?
There was a great line that was used in American politics a few years ago, that politicians always campaign in poetry and they govern in prose. And I think that's actually a little bit what you're talking about. But I think that sometimes, Darrell, we need to be, and perhaps this isn't going to be a super popular comment to make to a number of you that are more enamored with immediate action. But we have the luxury as members of the United Conservative Party that we have a pretty homogenous mindset on a lot of stuff. When we talk about freedom, when we talk about fiscal conservatism, when we talk about faith and all the things that Eric Bouchard mentioned before, we're all in agreement on that. I don't even really think there's shades of blue on that, Darrell. But where we can have that homogeneity because we are so consistent in our values. Our MLAs face election from a much broader base of values and opinions and thoughts, some of which truly believe that conservatism is close to evil, close to the devil, that it's about hate and it's about discriminating. And that's truly where so many people who are what the Premier would refer to, and I think Fox News referred to as low information voters. And so when our elected officials say, I can't sell that, and we've heard that from a lot of MLA Bouchard's colleagues that sit in caucus. They couldn't do what Calgary Lougheed does. I know there's some people who think that's because they're not trying hard enough. But Darrell, I can't believe that that's the case. I believe that those folks do, those MLAs and those CA presidents, they know their people as well. Perhaps you've elevated people in Calgary Lougheed to a place, and it's happened in other places too, where they're not just willing to accept, but willing to embrace and be excited about an injection of truth and the courage to listen. But it's not everyone at that level. And I think we have to be respectful of that.
But I think, really what happens if we don't elevate the conversation, sorry, there is moderators, I'm sorry.
I think they expected this, Darrell.
Yeah. Well, they said it side
You've
by
already
side.
answered the first two questions, so
Okay.
I was moving on to number 4. already.
Okay. But this is where I disagree, Rob. And I think what happens is that engagement that has to happen on the CA level, we need to know 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 voters. You need to knock on those doors. You need to identify that voter. You need to know who they are. And if you know who they are, where they are, you can talk to them. And if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're saying, look, well, the leader is going to save us with her aerial attack during the campaign or the last 6 months of grafting that's going to get shelled out to potential NDP ridings that they might vote conservative. They are not voting conservative. NDP people are not voting conservative, right? Because they talk with one voice, they think with one thought, and they don't really allow for the lively conversation that you and I are having about ideas and about the province and about innovation and about, what does it mean to actually be able to help people that need help in a real way? Or what does it really mean for kids to be educated in a school and understand who is actually responsible for that? Is that the school board? Is that the government? Where does that accountability lie? Yes, maybe conservatives are willing to have that conversation, but everyone should want to have this conversation because these are rich conversations that really make Alberta stronger.
100% that's true. However, when you talked about the NDP people, I actually don't believe there are that many NDP people in Alberta. I believe that Alberta is a conservative province. I think Edmonton is a conservative city. I know that we say this is the government city. This is where the bureaucrats live. The Krats, someone I was visiting with today, we're talking about. But in the end, look how they vote federally. They vote conservative federally. So Edmonton is a conservative city too. But we need to be able to, and one of my fellow candidates, not for president, but in one of the other positions, talked about connecting with Albertans with their language. If you're talking to a dog, don't talk about carrots, right? Was it Jody Gateman, I think, mentioned that? I thought it was really cool. And I think that that's really important. So the work that I tasked Jack with, and then Jack got together with a group of people, a couple of them are in the room, on our election readiness. You were on the committee. We had you on the committee. Yeah. And then you guys put together the strategy that we ultimately as a board approved in the spring. There's an Edmonton strategy, there's a Calgary strategy, there's actually even a differentiated strategy for North, Central, and South, because every place is different. And even within Calgary, what flies in Northeast and what flies down in Southwest are different. The topics are different. The talking points are different. Our folks that actually ran for city council would be probably really beneficial in being able to work with us on that. So we need to be able to talk to people who don't identify as NDP, they don't identify as Conservatives, they are just Albertans. And they want something safe and that they can get behind and support them and make their lives better. We all know that's conservatism,
But do you
but
think-
they might be scared to think that's conservatism.
But conservatism is really 6 key principles. I mean, I think Albertans should believe that they should put Alberta first. I mean, my wife has a great analogy. Okay, she sees 2 grain cars, and there's 2 rats, and one grain car has very little bit of grain in it, and that's where the 2 rats are. Okay, and that says Canada. And then on the other grain car, it's full, right, and it says Alberta. And you know, for people who want entitlements, I mean, they need to switch grain cars. They need to get on the train. So I would think that the idea of putting Alberta first should appeal to everybody. I mean, how can it not appeal to people who come here with their families for a better family, for a better job, for a better career, and not want to put Alberta first?
Darrell, what the majority of people care about the most and what they want to put first is themselves.
Ouch.
It's fact. I don't think that's wrong. I think that's how most people think. So when we get into the discussion of are you for Canada or are you for Alberta, the vast majority of Albertans, the vast majority of people anywhere will say, I'm putting myself first. And I think that's base. That's realistic.
But is that the deterioration of community if it's always self first?
Oh, I think honestly, I think it's always been this way. People will put their families first and they'll look out for themselves. They know that when their community is better off, their families are better off, but our people don't think about that in terms of political terms. That's why I think that it's important that we be able to talk to Calgarians, to talk to Edmontonians, to talk to people from all across the province, even though we are Conservatives, that we talk to them at their level, with their language, and we say, these are the things that we offer that will connect with you.
I got it.
And with a lot of those folks, so many of the things that you value in Calgary Lougheed, they don't value.
You know what? But conservatism is the language of love.
Well, and we know that, but boy, that's a well-kept secret.
It is,
Like,
I
this
know.
room knows that.
Okay, I think they got a question for us. Hang
Okay,
on.
there was
No.
never any fear that you guys would be able to fill the time allotment, but there were some people that put together some questions. You've answered, I think, 3 of them. Sheldon?
Yeah. So now here's going to be a big one because it is the elephant in the room. So we are expecting an independence vote in 2026. Is anybody disillusioned on that? Like, we all believe it's coming.
Premier's been pretty forthright that that's
Yeah.
coming.
So
Thank you, Thomas Saskazik.
Are you committed to respecting the will of the majority, whatever the outcome of that vote? And how do you plan to ensure that commitment is upheld within the party?
I agree with upholding the will of the majority. And how to do that within the party, I think the party represents a great cross-section of Alberta. I think the members who will go to the AGM represent a cross-section of the party. So therefore, I think that will is the will of the people, and whatever that outcome was going to be, I think that's a reasonable expectation of any political party to accept the will of the people, because we will accept the will of our members.
Bonnie and Max actually asked me this question, and so there's actually, you can find it on social media. I have long stood by the fact that the day after that election, that referendum takes place, if the referendum decision is yes, Alberta wants to become independent by a vote of 50% plus 1, I will convene, if I am the president of the party, our board of directors to actually call a special general meeting where we will put a question together that we will then take to the entirety of our membership, not at a special general meeting that's held in a central location, not at an annual general meeting with a ballot box in every single one of our 87 or 89, depending on where we're at in terms of that cycle, constituency associations where we ask every single member of our party to weigh in on this, because that is such a fundamental question. I actually don't think that a vote at an annual general meeting or a special general meeting in person is right. We want to take that vote to our members across the country, from deep southwest Alberta to deep northeast Alberta and get every single one of them to weigh in. And they will decide then if UCP becomes an independence party based on that referendum.
But you know, Rob, the challenge with that logic is this. If the vote is yes for independence, if the UCP votes no, it's no longer relevant. Therefore, in order to maintain its relevance, we need to engage in the conversation in a respectful way. And certainly the way that we've done it in Lougheed is to say, within the framework of United Canada, until someone tells us otherwise. And we had Plan B without that, because we need to be relevant the whole time in the whole conversation from beginning to end. And I like the idea of a vote, but the tricky part with the vote at that point in time is Alberta's already declared that it wants independence. So are we saying that the party in of itself doesn't want that, or is that more to validate what we already know?
When you talk about whether we remain valid or not, that's for our members to decide. We are what our members want us to be. And so at that point, if the majority of Albertans have spoken, I suspect we know what our party will say, but by then we will be able to be talking about what that framework looks like, and we'll be invited by the rest of Alberta to actually have that conversation. It's not us trying to preclude a referendum outcome, which I think actually is a way to actually undermine the success of that referendum question going the way that so many of our members want it to.
Okay, we're down to the last 2 minutes. What else do you want to say?
What's Plan B?
Well, I think there's always a Plan B, and sometimes in politics you don't know what the Plan B is until you're at the gate. And then when you're at the gate, you can deal with Plan B. But until then, we can't overly speculate either, because that just gives fodder to the fire.
Premier has said, we are not, well, I've said, we've all said, we are not an independence party. We're not. We don't have a mandate for that. Premier is not the leader of an independence government. There is no mandate for that. We need to rely on our Albertans to tell us who we are. And in the case of the United Conservative Party, I am 100% committed to listening to our entire big tent, I hate the term, but I'm not sure what else to use, for our membership to tell us who we are. But something that I think is important, and Darrell said it, and I entirely agree, it has been said that only freedom-minded people go to our AGM, and that you cannot take, in fact, we've actually had some sitting MLAs who we know have said, you cannot take the face of the party by who shows up at the AGM. We had almost over 5,000 people there last year. There's going to be over 4,000 people there this year. In my opinion, and it took me a couple times to get through Statistics 101. I had to withdraw one time, but then I got an 8 out of 9 at the U of A on it the next time. It was a hard class for the Aggies to take. But if you have over 4,000 people in a party that right now has about 45 to 48,000, and look at that as a representative of the province, you can take to the bank that what our people say at our AGM is reflective not only of our party, but it's reflective of Alberta. And I think that's very important to be able to recognize.
and I agree with Rob, and I passed that class the very first time. So
they made him smarter in
Guys,
Vermilion Vegerville.
We are hitting the hard stop line, so I want you to stand up, give a big round of applause to both Rob and Darrell, and to all of the candidates that are standing up for the new positions for the UCP AGM in November.
Okay, just a quick warning, everybody. We pushed this as late as we could. Now you need to understand, at 10 o'clock, the gates are locked. I don't care how much fun you're having, enjoying the visit and everything else. At 10 o'clock, that gate is locked. So you understand, that's why we had to make a hard stop. Visit very briefly. Thank you for coming out, everyone. We'll see you at the AGM, and God bless you all.
The gentle shimmer of the dawn, where freedom lies.